Good morning or good afternoon or whatever time you are listening to this short and sweet Camcast. I'm Wolfie and I'm here to talk about the keys to success for developing a successful and effective intervention for your program. You know that as business consultants, your job is really to work with your client to enhance, expand, and sustain the work of your client's organization. And part of that is to identify new business opportunities with them and to find donors that might fund those new business opportunities for them. So getting off to a good start requires a proper attitude, and that attitude is characterized by being passionate about what you're doing, by getting invested in the organization that you're working with and in the problems that that organization is facing. And finally, you will undoubtedly find that you don't have all of the technical information that you need to design an effective program for your client. Often the technical expertise is outside of your wheelhouse, and and you will need to educate yourself to become an expert in a particular area. So just some of the successful practices of good program design. First of all, you need to read your scope of work carefully. Read every word of it and understand exactly what the client is looking for. And you will want to develop a deep understanding of your client and to build a very strong relationship with your client organization. This will be critical to developing a program for them that they will find useful and be able to shop around to potential donors. And third, another one of your jobs is to identify appropriate potential donors for them. This is something that oftentimes clients have difficulty doing. So if you can find 2 or 3 potential donors that fit the geographic area and the type of program that you're designing, that will be very useful to them. And finally, it's a great idea, even on day 1 or 2, to be able to articulate what you're doing in a 1-minute elevator pitch. You can never underestimate how useful that might be in identifying opportunities for your client. And finally, call and check early and often with your client and with your donor agencies so that you develop good channels of communication and can test and refine your ideas. So what are donors looking for? I love this little cartoon. It is something that relates really to what we were talking about before. But do you have an idea for your project yet? No, I'm waiting for inspiration. You can't just turn on creativity, like a faucet. You have to be in the right mood. And what mood is that? Last minute panic. Well, what most donors are looking for are significance. They want to know that what you're proposing meets their mission and their purpose for being, their service area, their fits with prior funding that they've provided, and above all, they want it to make a difference. They want to be sure that it's technically feasible, so you have to do your homework about and educate them about the feasibility of your program intervention. They want to know that the program will have a strong public response. If they're not convinced that the program can generate ownership among the public, then they may be unwilling or reluctant to provide support. Your program needs to be financially feasible, and you need to demonstrate that by providing a sound and reasonable budget. Your program needs to be sustainable, and most organizations will want to be convinced that after their funding has finished, you will be able to continue along with the program. Your program has to have realistic program logic, and so the logic model is a key component of every program design. And finally, you need to be able to measure benefits and results clearly. So talking a little bit about writing for your client and the donor, and that is preparing a program design or a proposal to present your program design to a donor. It's essentially different than academic writing. You are not writing for your professor. You are not writing for me. You are not writing for Kristen, and you are not writing for Monita. You are writing for your client and for the donor that your client is going to approach. So there is a difference between academic writing and proposal writing. Academic writing is really involves the world of ideas. It's a thesis, it's a theme, it's a theory that you're explaining. Whereas proposal writing is really about the world of action. It's about projects. It's about activities within those projects. And it's about the outcomes that these activities in these projects will create. So a more closer look reveals that while academic writing is often researcher-centered, proposal writing is foundation or donor-centered. Academic writing often has a past orientation, whereas proposal writing always has a future orientation. It's something that you're going to do. Academic writing tends to be expository in nature, while proposal writing needs to be persuasive. You are trying to convince your audience that this is the best course of action, the best use of donor money, and likely to provide great benefit to the target population. Academic writing is impersonal, but proposal writing is very personal. Academic writing is usually individualistic. You're usually writing on your own, or maybe sometimes with another person, but mostly on your own. Whereas proposal writing, as you are going to experience in the next 2 weeks, is completely team-oriented. In academics, we value big words and verbosity, but in proposal writing, we value clear language, absence of jargon, and brevity. And finally, we try to avoid the specialized terminology of academic writing and make our proposal writing accessible, and we use language that's accessible to ordinary people. So finally, when you present your program, you want to grab the interest of your audience immediately. You want to explain the importance and stress the need for the intervention that you're proposing. What is the extent and magnitude of the problem? We talked about the situation analysis before in prior Camcast. The target population, the contributing factors, the impact of the problem. And you need to educate on the issues. You need to identify and explain the current gaps. You need to discuss and educate about potential different approaches and which one and why yours is the most promising. And finally, you need to describe and be conversant with the challenges and the benefits that you expect when you implement your program. So I just want to quickly run over the steps in program design that we will be undertaking over the next 2 weeks. We've already talked in a prior Campcast about assessing the situation, and this one is really about the program intervention or stating the problem. We'll also be talking, and you will be developing a logic model for your program, goals and measurable objectives for the program, an implementation plan, a monitoring plan and evaluation plan. I left out here on this slide, I can't believe it, a budget, which you will also be providing to your client, and finally a sustainability plan. So just to cap up what we've been saying, when you do get around to writing, and I think you will be doing that almost immediately, here are some elephants in the road that you want to avoid. That guy's big and he could do some damage if he walked over you. So avoid jargon and the passive tense. Keep your objectives smart. Eliminate weak links between project inputs, activities, and outcomes. Follow instructions exactly always. Write a strong executive summary, because that's what people read, and if you botch the executive summary, sometimes they just don't have the fortitude to continue reading your very excellent program that you put a lot of effort into developing. Always solicit multiple feedback during the design process, and don't be afraid to revise and revise and revise. I think we've made that point many times already. When you're all done, do not forget to proofread. Nobody wants to have a typo in the title of their program, but I can't tell you how often something like that will happen. And finally, we'll just say it again because it is the most important thing. Revise, revise, and revise. I just finished Steve Jobs' biography, and I think one of his hallmarks and one of the characteristics of his incredible success at Apple and at Pixar was his ability to continue to refine and revise his products. He told a wonderful story about 6 months before the iPhone came out and was scheduled to go into production. Jobs was given the prototype, and he held it in his hand. He went home with it, and he came back the next morning and he said, "This doesn't feel right." And he called his chief designer in, and he asked that he redesign the entire case of the iPhone. They had to get new glass. They had to scrap the initial case so that there was no metal in the front of the case. And they did this all 6 months before they were supposed to launch production of the product. An incredible thing. But that's, I think, what you have to do to really be excellent is you have to be willing to keep making improvements right up until the end. So that's all I have in this Camcast, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you in class. So take care and be well.